So I'm not gonna lie, I don't have any complaints about this week's episode of Tower of God. I saw a lot of people last week saying they were dropping Tower of God, that they had enough, it was too much, and honestly, I can't say I blame them. Last week was pretty ass. Directing was piss poor, both on visuals and just, honestly, narratively, it just wasn't a good directed episode. And this episode, I don't really have complaints. Like, visually, narratively, characterization wise, even some decent animation with that Kang fist attack there before pulling his punch and not obliterating our boy. It could be a situation where I've just grown so used to this season disappointing me that anything mildly decent seems like a 5-star meal. But I don't think that's what's happening here. I legitimately think this was just a good episode. It was paced well, there was a little comedy. I mean, there's some hidden comedy in the episode, like the idea that Coon of all characters, his name in the chat GPT is handsome. Like, stuff like that is funny, but in general, it was actually a pretty dark episode with a compelling backstory, child experimentation, creating living weapons, bombshell that Kang as well as Bam, aka Viole, are basically the same, one of the same, and unfortunately, had the group all gone together and Kang not went by himself, Coon and Bam would have reunited, and honestly, I'm a little sad we're not going to see that more than likely. But in general, this was a step in the right direction. Not an episode that redeems a season that, honestly, it's really not the unpopular opinion to point out the fact that this season ain't it. I mean, go look at the Reddit for Tower of God, or look at any of the discussion surrounding this show. It's literally post after post about how this season is ass. I don't think it's bad, I just think it's so mediocre that for as large of a fan base as this seemingly has, it's wild that this is what we got for a season 2. It's just a massive downgrade, but hopefully this is a sign of good things to come. Now, I do have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want some full and good thought to any of these Tower of God episodes, it's going to be over there exclusively. So, the big thing for me that I think, ignore the visual stuff. Ignore, like, visually, like, okay, it doesn't have as unique of an art style, or the animation, this or that. Like, ignore all that. For me, the thing that really feels awkward about this season is almost like how it just feels like, on one hand, it's trying to be a brand new show. Like, it's like, oh, here's all these new characters, and honestly, they just don't even, like, there's 2 characters in this cast currently, outside of course, Bam, that I'm like, those are really interesting characters. We, of course, have Wangnan, who's just awesome, and then we have Kang. Everyone else, though, like, they just kind of exist for me, and compared to my thoughts of Season 1 with all the characters we saw, there was never that thought for me. And from what I keep seeing in my comment section, this could be mistaken, apparently Tower of God does this a lot, where it just constantly introduces new things, and maybe you often want to see something else that isn't there. And if that's the case, maybe Tower of God just isn't a show for me long term. That could be the case, but I'm hoping, with what we see with certain things such as Kang Focus backstory, and, you know, despite the, honestly, felt like an ominous death flag hanging over his head with how he's separated, and just honestly everything that they're building up, especially with hunting a devil, I'm expecting some crazy shit to happen. But it just does feel like, you know, you could just, from the beginning of season 2, it's like, okay, like, they're almost like restarting, which is fine. Like, it's often when you get time skips or crazy things happen, like your main character got pushed off by that bitch Rachel, ultimately, you know, you might have like a mini reset. But it almost feels like by the time we finish season 2, I'm almost expecting that I'm going to walk into season 3 and they're just going to do it again. They're just going to keep trying to introduce more and more ideas and characters, and maybe the characters I want to see more of just aren't going to get the spotlight. I am happy that they're focusing more on Coon recently, which is good, but he's only a part of the stuff from season 1 I wanted to see more of. So it is a little worrisome that I'm kind of wondering if this is going to be a situation where the cast is going to be too bloated and you're not going to really focus as much as you want. Because the Kang stuff, up to this point, I just thought he was kind of a fun character, but it's not like I thought he was a deep character by any stretch. And then they dropped, obviously, the really good backstory. But if the only times that I feel like the characters are truly excelling is when they drop a backstory moment, that isn't really great for present day characterization, you know? I don't know, it's like, I want to be fair to this season, because on one hand, I also don't want to just pile, like, it feels like dogpiling this season when you're just like, damn, that was ass, or damn, that was bad. And last week, there's a reason why I jumped on that dog pile, because that's how I truly felt. This episode, it's actually really good, or at least decent, and decent's just objectively better than whatever the hell we got last week. But I just kind of hope that they get more focused with the last handful of episodes. Like, okay, maybe we do just bring all the characters together. Like, give us a more... Because if we leave season 2, and it's just been mostly... Okay, yeah, some shit happened, 7 years ago after he got pushed off the tower. Clearly some experimentation went on with Bam. Fug can't be trusted. Very clearly same shit that happened to our boy Kang over here. But at the end of the day, there's a lot you can say happened in season 1 over 9 episodes, but I can't say a whole lot has happened so far in season 2 over 9 episodes. Like, maybe people will correct me here, but is it wrong to say that so far season 2, what's happened is we got reintroduced to Bam going under a new name. A bunch of new characters got introduced. One of the characters could easily be a main character if Bam was to die or was in any other show. We have Kang, who is experimented on, which also relates to the world building, which is nice. So we did get some good world building about what happens in the tower and stuff. But then you look at the other characters, you got a girl who keeps burning food and feeding it to him, and it's kind of cute. Like, it lets Bam probably show the first smile he's had in like 7 years. But have we actually really progressed that much? It doesn't feel like it. And it's kind of weird because it's like, is the reason I'm feeling this because of cut content? Or is the reason I'm feeling like this because maybe the Tower of God structure isn't actually for me long term? I don't know, because I definitely have seen more people over the weeks in my comment section say they just don't vibe with Tower of God even reading it. Like, it just continues to introduce too much and doesn't focus. And then I see other people saying like, oh, the anime's ass, but reading it's so much better. So I don't know. I still try to go in with open minds, but it's disappointing. The good thing is, if this is a good sign of things to come, this was a really solid episode, and if they continue to make it look at least like this, and keep the focus on emotional and world building, because I think the big thing that sells this episode to me isn't necessarily the emotional of like, goddamn, imagine the only happiness you had in your life is some girl allowing you to say a name, and you saw the sky once. Like, that's heartbreaking. But the fact that that relates to the world building of Tower God makes it feel more important than just, oh, here's a random character with a sad backstory. Give me more of that, and maybe the season can actually go out on a decent note rather than a crap shot like it's currently progressing to. I don't know. Let me know what you're thinking down below. I'd love to know from both source readers whether you enjoy the source or you actually didn't vibe with it. I mean, let me know what you're thinking of this episode, because, I don't know, maybe I'm giving it more praise than it deserves, but I don't think it's just because this was a better episode than last week. It just felt a lot more structured, but that's down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Patrick Moley, Greedix23, X Distro, Toasted, Hosma Stilty, Black Goku 90, and we also have Mika Yu. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.